Bam, bam, bam. Here we are again tonight with co-host Gary Nolan and Jody Dupree. We're going to talk about these protests that's going on all over the United States and give our little spin to it, what we think, and see if we can't figure out some more about what's actually going on. You've been keeping up with the news about the protest?
I have, and I want to make a little bit of a detour there. As far as protesting, I have zero problem with it, and I don't think most Americans do. And this is where the media has trained us. We call it, we're going to talk about the protest. We're going to talk about the protest. I really don't care about the protest. I want people to protest. If they have a problem with something, I want them to be able to go and stand somewhere and say, hey, hell no, we don't like it, even if I disagree with it. What is offending me and a lot of people, and it doesn't sit right, is the fact that people are getting their asses kicked and they're getting hurt. They're getting killed. The police are getting killed. They're getting hurt. A lot more of them than the quote-unquote protesters, which are a bunch of anarchists. That's what can't stand.
It's horrible, ain't it?
It is.
Well, I'll tell you, the part that struck me the most about it was how elected officials are calling off police departments. They're allowing this to go beyond a protest. It's become violent. And destruction of property and all these things. And these people tore an oath, I'm assuming they did, because that's what we always did, that they was going to protect their communities.
Right.
I don't see no evidence whatsoever that they're doing anything to protect their communities, but they're blaming all of this on somebody else.
That's right.
And I'm sitting there thinking, you go to Chicago, now all these people are moving out, and I'm curious about when is the elections in them damn towns.
Right now.
Is the citizens of these communities going to vote their sorry ass out of office?
Probably not.
And that's the troubling part to me. So, I agree 100% with you. I think that if somebody don't like something, they should tell it, because that's what makes America great. I don't even got to like what you say, but say it. Do it peacefully.
If you're civil,
yeah.
If you start breaking stuff, like what have we forgot? I guess 9/11 is so far in the past that we forget. I don't. I remember the firemen and the police going up the damn stairs while everybody else was running downstairs. I remember the phone calls where the cops are calling their loved ones saying, I don't think I'm going to make it. I want to tell you, I love you. And they hung up and they walked up.
Yeah.
They kept going up. That's the reality of police work. It's what people are bitching and moaning about is rare. I don't have the numbers sitting in front of me, but it's so rare that it's less than 20 that are really bad. And what happens is, and that's going to really tick people off when I say something like that, because everybody thinks there's thousands of, maybe 100,000 people getting beat up by the police. That's not happening. That's not happening. And what's happening is the narrative is changing so much. Is again, they're peaceful protesters. My ass, they're not. There's nothing peaceful about what's going on. The other night in Portland, watch a guy, they make him crash his truck, they get him, pull him out, they beat the snot out of this guy. And then he's sitting in the middle of the road, he's dazed and confused, and some guy comes out in the middle of nowhere, runs with all his might, does a roundhouse kick to his head, and you can hear it hit the concrete. He's in a hospital. I don't even know if the guy made it or what. That sucks. And then for me, Jody, I saw somebody post, I don't know, this happened 3 weeks ago. And this is why I know it's not a black or white thing for me. They showed a picture of a man, a black man in the 1960s, being shoved, beat, pushed, like we're run out of town, right? And it didn't sit well with me. I'm like looking at it and I go, that's bullshit. That shouldn't be happening. It's the same visceral feeling in my gut. I'm going, that's not right. When I see what's going on here, it's not right.
I'm struggling to figure out how they justify the protest anyhow. So all this stems from an incident in New York City. Well, it wasn't in New York. Where was the
Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Yep.
And all of a sudden it spread. And if you notice, it spread into more progressive type communities.
Seattle,
Yeah.
Portland,
right?
L.A.
Yeah. So I haven't seen that anywhere else. And how do you take what's happening and attach it to that narrative? Now, I understand how, because it meets the narrative. They finally have something, whoever they are, who allows them to do it. But the reality is, I fully believe this. This movement, or whatever it's called, is being paid for by others. And I'm wondering, well, what are you doing? You know, you read where George Soros and them are paying for this money. And I believe somebody's paying, because these people can't afford to do this like this for nothing.
No.
You know, somebody's helping them out. But what is it you're gaining? What is it that this man thinks by him putting the money up to have this unrest in the community?
Chaos, anarchy.
Yeah, but what end does it serve to the man?
Well,
or to anyone?
I don't even want to bring this up, but George Soros is a money man, right? And he bets against currencies. This is where he's made his money. Well, our dollar's tanking. It's a fact of life. It's getting worse and worse. The feds are printing more and more money. Hasn't caught up yet, but
the value in the American dollar.
Once it does catch up, because they're printing so much money. I mean, we're $23 trillion in debt, and we just signed over 3 more. Where do you think that money comes from? And that money that we signed over had to be printed.
Yeah, because we don't own the gold standard no more.
Yeah. Well, I doubt if Fort Knox has a damn ounce of
a bar
gold.
of it.
Yeah, I doubt it. And so my point here is George Soros, he bets against currencies. He's crushed currencies. He's not a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's a bitter old man. Very rich old man, but same. He's open border guy. I mean, he don't like borders in countries. He wants everybody to be able to. That's chaos to me. I want borders. I'm sorry. I don't apologize for it. I want borders. I want protection. We are different than the people up north, Canada, than us, and we're different than the people down south. There's nothing wrong with that. And we just talked about that in the last podcast, is that even in our own country, we have differences. But when they become so different, you have to regulate what comes in and out of your country.
Yeah. You know, I think the timing, too, because it's kind of, I feel so bad for people who are caught in the COVID issues, because so many of them. I tried to find a cabinet guy the other day for a friend of mine. He needs like 260 units set. I called 2 guys I know that did that kind of stuff. They're out of business today because no one will let you come into your house and do no work. They're all gone.
Right.
So the economy on its own, no matter how much the government pushes back into it, it don't recover. It's going to take time. This ain't something that you might can survive it, but there are so many people in business who are going to struggle because of this. And it goes back to the real issue that I really feel like is part of this issue that should be talked about is not, it's like Black Lives Matter. I do not know a single person who believes that black lives don't matter. Not one.
Me either.
So at the end of the day, everybody's life matters. So there was this celebrity person. It was a woman, and she certainly can say whatever she feels like she should say to make her feel important. But she said, all lives can't matter until black lives matter. So what I ain't heard on the news or nowhere else is exactly where is it that black lives don't matter? Where is that problem exist? I'm not sitting here saying it don't exist. I'm saying I'm not aware of it. So instead of tearing down buildings and starting fires and blowing up planes and doing all these things or defunding the police, where is this really at? What is this really doing, the Black Lives Matter part? So, but I think at the root of this, if you go back to the incident that seems to be the catalyst for all this, I think this goes right back to the way law enforcement and judicial system work, because there is absolutely no doubt in my mind there's disparity amongst people, not just whites, not just blacks,
Economic.
all of them. Economic. It's an economic issue. So if people have money, that don't necessarily mean that they have privilege. It means they got money. So you don't really hear too much about them being thrown down on the road. Now, it does happen. It does happen. But the question I have, when we talked to a lady who was running for
Tina Seifert,
state attorney,
yeah.
we brought this issue up because I fully believe that the state attorney's office, or in other parts of the country, they call them district attorneys, whatever that role is, that title you take, you have a responsibility to protect your community. If a police officer does something that police officer should not have done, there should be more consequence to that than him being able to resign or even lose his certification.
Sure.
I think there should be something else. So most of them, it appears to me, most state attorneys don't have an open door case policy. So it sounds to me like if local law enforcement does not present a case to the state attorney's office, there ain't no case.
Right.
Well, then now they're not the check and the balance no more. So which law enforcement official is going to take somebody and now say, well, you know what, my discipline ain't enough, so state attorney, we're going to let you do the investigation.
That's right.
That don't happen, but that needs to happen. And that should be the role. All state attorneys should have an open door policy, and if they are aware that an incident happened, whether they prosecute it or not is irrelevant, but it should be looked into by their office. They're elected to do that. But I see that being the core of this whole thing myself.
Right.
Is that we got to figure out. I was reading the other day where the district attorney, state attorney, wherever they call them in Chicago, that was another investigation just come out that showed that her Fox, she's a Fox, her last name's Fox, on that Smollett case.
Yeah. And they came back saying that she did wrong.
Yeah, she did wrong.
And nothing will happen.
Nothing will happen.
That's right.
Now, there's the issue. Why aren't we saying that? Why aren't we saying that? I know locally, right here, something I've seen that I kind of agree with it, but I kind of don't. There was an incident that happened between law enforcement and a civilian. Now, some in the community are on social media asking for local law enforcement officials to resign and that the officer shouldn't be allowed to quit. He should be decertified and charges brought and all this thing. But nowhere, that part I probably agree with. The part I don't agree with is why is it that these same people aren't saying, state attorney, where are you at?
Right.
Why ain't the state attorney being called out? Now, locally, I think I know why. It's politics.
Everything's politics.
But you can't have a real conversation. You can't have a real agenda about Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, whatever matters, if you don't encompass the entire problem. You isolate it and slice it off into pieces that fits your narrative.
That's right.
That's what everybody seems to me like they're wanting to do.
And that's the other thing. You know, Black Lives Matter is an incorporation. It's not a. It's incorporated. The BLM is trademarked. They're not building neighborhoods. This is they're. If you read their own stuff, they're a communist entity. That's what they believe in. Mm. And we got the NFL, we got the NBA, we got Major League Baseball, all jumping on board. What, they can't read those? They can't go onto their website and read what these people are about? I'm not talking about Black Lives. I'm talking about Black Lives Matter. That, to me, is the wrong question. The right question, do we have equality in this country? That's what I want. I want equality. I don't necessarily, in fact, not necessarily, I don't like that spokesman because they're taking us down anarchy. They're taking us, they want a whole different type of government. They don't like capitalism. I like capitalism. I think capitalism raises everybody up. I mean, our poor are some of the highest standard poor, if not the highest, in the world. Is it good?
That's saying something for the world.
Yeah. But is that good? Not necessarily. But at least that tide is raising all these boats. We like it or not. And it's the best system on earth, in my opinion.
Well, that's why I know something's wrong. Because if I were in that position,
right,
and I was going to protest because I feel strongly about this particular issue, I would be trying to find me black people, white people, brown people, red people, get everybody in the room and say, now we need to have some sort of economic discussion about where we want to go as a people.
Right.
It's time that we take government from the government and put it back where it belongs in the people.
That's where it's supposed to go, from bottom up.
If you want to fix it, if you truly want to fix it, that's where you have to start. But no one's doing that.
No.
So it makes me question just how much are we really wanting to do it. And I tell you the one thing I thought about today, driving down the road, and I passed Martin Luther King Boulevard. Of course, now Martin Luther King's life was cut short. And I don't know everything there is to know about the man outside of he was a man like me and everybody else. And ain't none of us perfect.
Nope.
But I believe that his heart was pure to what he thought. And he was participating in a system with Johnson, President Johnson, trying to gain equality for his people. I believe that. I believe he earnestly believed that.
And Johnson was probably the biggest racist of the time.
No question about it.
Yep.
So Johnson used Martin Luther King, in my own opinion, to benefit his own political agenda.
Sure.
And Martin Luther King got little crumbs from Johnson about things. But I wondered, when I seen his street today, what would Martin Luther King say today if he were to look at what's happening? Because the equality of mankind, in my optic, is further than it's ever been apart.
The segregationists are now on the other side. It is so weird. I mean, it's like all I remember, Jody, is when I was a boy, and you're not much younger than I am, but I remember people getting beat. I remember they're trying to get over a bridge or eat at a restaurant and getting the snot beat out of them, having dogs sicked on them, having hoses just blast them, and cops arresting them, in droves. Mm. That is, everybody I know, as a boy, they sat there and they didn't like what they saw. They go, those people are marching anyway. Mm-hmm. They weren't fighting back. They were saying, damn it, I want to be able to sit here and eat. I want to be able to go on this road and go into that town. I have a right as a human being, as an American, to do so.
Yep.
And that spoke volumes at that time I was 6, 7, 8 years old. That spoke volumes.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people think this is a unique time. It's really not.
No.
But I remember vividly during the Vietnam War, especially towards its end. I'd have been 10 years old at the time. And I really remember what I remember because of Walter Cronkite.
Yep.
Because my granddaddy was deaf. But there was two things he didn't miss because he could read lips. Walter Cronkite or wrestling. He was going to watch them two things. But America trusted the man that when he said something, it was what it was supposed to be.
That's right.
That don't exist anymore today. So now everything is on social media. It's so fragmented that just like what we're talking about now.
Right.
It's not based on our own personal. We're out there in the middle of it. It's based on all the different reporting that's going on, and we're drawing a conclusion based on some of the reporting.
And that man was on the liberal side of life, and you never knew it. He just said, "This is the." Remember, he'd close with basically, "That's the news this day." Blah blah blah. Good night, and you never knew it. He just, "This is what's going." We don't do that. The politicians feed these people with information, and they're used to getting their substance from them.
Yep.
Watergate will never happen with a system like that. It will never happen.
Well, what's happened is that the political establishment has turned the media into political arms for whichever side they exist on.
Yeah, you're either on Fox News or CNN.
So going back, so in the Vietnam War, I would watch this, and I remember watching footage of soldiers coming home from the Vietnam War, getting off the airplane, getting in the airports, and people spitting on
I
them
remember that.
and throwing shit at them.
Yep.
And calling them baby killers. I mean, this was on the damn news.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, how, as young as I was, how does people draw that reference? These guys are in the military. They're not decision makers. They're defending the country because they think they're doing, whether you agree with it or not, they were doing their patriotic duty.
Yep.
That's how they seen it. And I didn't read it. I was watching a thing one time on the Vietnam War, and they was interviewing a guy who was there. And in his talking, he said when he got to the airport, he could not wait to get home and pull his uniform off because he was so ashamed. It was because of the way people felt him, the way he was done. So you go back to 9/11, going back to what we're talking about now, is that people want so hard to find something to blame
Right.
for their own failings, for their own miserable existences, whatever they may be, the bad things they feel are happening to them, how things are not just because he's got a fancy car and I don't, whatever it may be, whatever they're drawing from. But you go back to 9/11, the one thing that probably more today I see that I think has led us down this path, that I don't hear nobody say because they ain't got the guts to say it, I reckon. There were so many heroes who died that day because they were wearing a uniform. They were doing what they felt they were supposed to do to protect the public. Since then, them same organizations that were heroes on that day become the golden children. All of a sudden, if you were not going to give law enforcement what they wanted, you were the devil incarnate.
Yeah.
They are heroes.
You
Well, they all ain't heroes.
You ain't going to fix the first responders problem.
You're not.
Yeah.
No. So they're not all heroes. So I think that they got put on a pedestal. They did not do it themselves, but they got put on a pedestal by the public and got seen in a different way. And then all of a sudden the accountability begins to erode. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that they should be accountable. I think that the state attorney's offices and these people that are their job is to prosecute wrongdoers should play a more active role in helping. And any law enforcement officer who gets mad because you say that ain't worth a shit.
Right.
Because any law enforcement officer who truly is doing that job for the right reason, he wants it done. He wants good cops around him.
I think most people think that they are there to serve and protect.
I think it's just a handful of a large group.
And the reason we hate them is because of the politics of every community. We need so many tickets. Come on, we need these. We need to go patrol.
Yeah,
And that
don't
pisses
drive through
everybody-
Lodi.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't drive through Lodi.
Right. That's right.
So yeah, so I think so. So I think that
You said something there that I think also, and it goes from Bush right through actually Clinton, Bush, Obama, probably still is happening with Trump, and that is the militarization of our police. They were getting everything but a half track in a tank. I mean, they were getting.
I know counties that got tanks.
Yeah, so that changes the perspective that I have of them, and I'm a pro. I know we need policemen. I know we do, but it changes again. Your word, the optics of our local police. I mean, they got like military looking stuff, And
they're more like a militia rather than a
yeah,
law enforcement
and
agency.
people our age, we still have Andy Griffith. You know, back in Hillsburg, town I used to work for, the chief of police every day would walk through the town square at the end of the day and check all the doors of the local places that were closed.
I remember as a boy happening right down Lake Town. Cops, the city police would walk down the streets, make sure everybody's shops were locked up.
Yep.
When I was a boy.
It's just a different way. And now, tanks, right? What's next? F-18,
So now we've eroded to the point now where these assholes think it's time to defund the police. And I'm thinking, how stupid can you be? There is a certain glue that holds all communities together.
That's right.
Across this country, all of them. And it's important because we are not the same people. Our ideologies are not the same. We don't talk the same. I can't go to Maryland and buy sweet tea. Right. They don't sell it.
Nope.
So that means that your local law enforcement needs to come out of your local community because they understand your culture, right? But they are only one component of the glue that holds the community together.
Right.
It's the rest of the judicial system that holds the glue together.
That's right.
It's the rest of everything else that holds the system together. And I think what happens is now through politics, everybody begins to think they are the glue. I'm the glue. Well, you're not. You're just one piece of the component that makes the glue that holds the community together.
You may have said something that's pretty profound there, is maybe it isn't the police that's letting them down at all. Maybe it's the rest of the system.
I think
that is letting them down.
And that's the point I'm trying to make. So that should be the conversation. How do we get past that?
These guys are given a task every day. Do they screw up? I've known people who have screwed up. But as a whole, they're not doing
wonderful
bad things.
people.
Yeah, they're just, they want to go home to they're part of our community. But they're given, this is the way we do things. Your business, everybody's business, you hire somebody, this is what I expect of you. That's where it's the chief, it's everybody up top that has to make sure these things are getting done. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the county commissioner or the county manager that never gets his review. You're not giving these people reviews. They're not double checking what their policies are. Things can go awry real fast.
Well, it's like in everything. Unless you can establish expectation, you shouldn't expect too much.
Yeah.
So I think that the real conversation, and one day we'll dive into this a little bit more, but I think that somebody at some point's somebody in the middle of that fray needs to say time out, because I think you're 100% right. Nobody's looking for solutions. People are looking for causes, and the people who know that they're looking for causes are looking for chaos.
Yep.
So we're going to take this group of people who are looking for a cause, and we're going to interject chaos and let them take our chaos, and we're going to let them expand it throughout the communities.
That's what's going on.
But I think it's going to boil down even to the elections, because politicians as a whole, I think the public is stupid, and they're not.
No.
So I think that this may have some traction that's going to give up in the larger cities where the progressives have more of a stronghold. But across the nation as a whole, I can promise you people are listening. And they're saying to themselves, I'm not going to let nobody represent me in my government who even begins to think along them lines.
Right.
So I think whatever it is they're trying to accomplish, I think will backfire on them, in my own opinion.
Well, it's kind of like what I, as a child, come full fold here, but as a child, you had these people wanting to keep life the way it's been for all these years, right? The Jim Crow type of thing. And when you see ugly, it's ugly. And it speaks louder than action. It speaks louder than anything else. When you see injustice, you just go, you're not looking at color anymore. All you're looking at is injustice. And when you see somebody being unjustly incarcerated or anything else, people look at that and go, no, that's wrong.
I think part of our heritage is that too, because about chaos. I read, because I never really studied the NAACP. where they come from, I just never had. I just understood in my own mind what I thought it represented. But the other day I said, I'm going to see. Let me just see where they come from. What started it? What was the ideology behind it? I was surprised. So now this come from the internet, so I'm not speaking it as it is the absolute gospel. I'm telling it the way it was represented to me through the articles I read. And it was more than one of them. But the original 67 founding members of the NAACP, 60 of them was white.
Yep.
7 of them were black.
Yep.
Then I'm thinking, well, why the hell? Where do white people go? I don't have a problem with them being a part of it and getting help them get started by no stretch of the imagination.
This nation would have never passed the Civil Rights Act if people in general, but white people,
They had to buy it. They had to buy into it
and said, "Hell yeah, we're going to go this
Ain't no
direction."
question. That's right.
So because in the reality, the numbers they're just not there. Mm-hmm. So that was the brilliance of Martin Luther King. He goes, "We're going to walk. Yeah, they're going to hit us. I know. We're going to take a beating, and we're going to change things." That's when white America turned around, and we're looking at black people being beat, and we're looking at people being beat, and that changed things.
It did. I think so. So then the last part of that article I thought was interesting that I am actually going to research some more was that some of the whites, and I took it as a vast majority of them, pulled out because the blacks who were a part of that original group wasn't as militant as they wanted them to be.
Wow.
So I'm thinking, wow. So even then, in the beginnings, and I'm not saying that the NAACP also hasn't evolved into whatever it is today. That's a good thing. I'm not saying that. But it sounds to me like another group of white people tried to take black people hunting a cause, trying to find some equality, and tried to use them to create some sort of chaos out of it, right? That's just what I took from it.
Yeah.
I am going to study it some more because I want to know the truth about it.
And this can be, here we are. We're standing on needles, right? Mm-hmm. How do I say this without?
It's terrible trying to say all these things.
But I'm kind of past that right now because I don't know what it's like to be a black man. I don't, and I don't know what it's like to be black. When I say that, though, I mean this with everything in me. Blacks don't know what it's like to be white. They can guess. I mean, white people have guessed for ages on how people are, what they think. We don't have a clue. And until we sit down and have these really honest discussions where some of it looks like it's really ugly, but we're just being up and honest, nothing's ever going to change.
I'll leave you with this. My granddaddy told me one time that he could not find the difference between a black man and a white man outside of the color of his skin.
Amen.
He says, his needs are exactly my needs. He has to eat. He has to drink water. He has to do all the things I have to do to survive. So we are in that together. Most of the blacks I knew growing up were religious. I mean, they went to church, and their church lasted for hours. I mean, they didn't play. So
I worked next to a black church once, and some of the best music, but it is a long service.
It takes a while, man. So me, being a white man, going to a black church, and I've been to a bunch of them, I would starve to death because I'm used to the Baptist preacher saying, okay, fellas, it's 12:30. Who's cooking chicken?
Yep.
You go to a black church, and I'm used to eating at 12:30.
They just
at 2 o'clock, they might be just getting going, and I'm sitting going, "Damn, I'm about to starve to death." You know, but some of my best friends are black, and I know a lot of.
You didn't just say that, right?
Yeah, they really are, and so I never because of the way I was brought up, I never seen them. I remember the first black man I ever known that dipped snuff, named Mark Bell. Now I bet you, if I were to go to Maryland, I couldn't find a single black man in the north that would dip Copenhagen.
That's right.
But they were like us. They didn't see us any different than we seen them, you know. No. There were always exceptions, but I don't know. It's interesting. I hope they work it out. I hope that, at the end of the day, people understand that we're all in it together. and we got to work together.
This country won't survive
Doubt
if
it.
12 point whatever % of the people are.
Yeah.
That's a hell of an anchor.
Wasn't it Abraham Lincoln that made the comment that the country, if it gets tore apart, will be tore apart from the inside?
Yep.
Wasn't Abraham Lincoln
Yep.
said that? Buddy, he ain't missing it by a lot, is he?
No, he's pretty accurate on that.
That's sad. Man, it's been real.
Yep. Too
See you
real.
next time.
All